The United Kingdom is a nation located in the British Isles made up of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Thousands of years ago, the Isles were inhabited by long-forgotten pre-Celtic people known as the beaker culture, named for their distinctive pottery beakers. Little is known of them, but it has been suggested that these people laid the foundations for the mysterious Stonehenge, a series of heavy standing stones which were transported from 150 miles away and arranged to form a calendar marking the days of the summer and winter solstice. Over time, waves of Celtic-speaking people arrived from the European continent, who soon came to form the Brittonic, Gaelic, and Pictish people. These people were not a unified people, but were rather many tribes who shared a similar pagan religion, language, and culture. The Romans invaded, conquering what's now England and Wales, but failed to conquer the Pictish tribes to the north. The Romans launched several campaigns into this land they called Caledonia. However, their fortifications were soon overrun and abandoned, and they retreated to Hadrian's wall. Their conquered lands were incorporated into the Roman Empire, becoming the province of Britannia. They brought Roman customs and laws, improved infrastructure, and connected many towns and cities with Roman roads. When the Romans left, there was a great migration of Germanic tribes. These were the Jutes, Angles, and Saxons. With their language, Old English, their settlement pushed many Britons to areas in Wales, Brittany, and a kingdom known as Dominion, while Scotland eventually evolved into 4 kingdoms. Thus, most of these were the Scots, who were originally from Ireland, the Britons of Strathclyde, the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Venetia, and the Picts of Alba. For unknown reasons, the Jutes disappeared from history, but the Angles and Saxons eventually formed 7 kingdoms. Wessex, Sussex, Kent, Essex, East Anglia, Mercia, and Venetia became Northumbria after the collapse of Dominion. The remaining territory of Cornwall, fought against the powerful kingdom of Wessex Corn, will eventually fall under the control of Wessex, but it managed to keep its own culture. Wales at this point was also made up of several separate kingdoms, the largest being Wynand in the North Poets in the east, and different to the south. The British Isles soon saw numerous Norse raiders from Scandinavia. These were the Vikings, and they began settlement on many of the Scottish Isles, the Isle of Man, and they even founded the city of Dublin in Ireland. The Scots and the Picts then decided to unite under Kenneth MacAlpine to form the Kingdom of Alba. The Kingdom of Alba grew strong over the years, and eventually Strathclyde was bought into the fold. Meanwhile, the Danish Vikings arrived in the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms for conquest. After fighting the King of Wessex, Alfred the Great, the Danelaw was formed a land where the laws of the Danes held influence over the Anglo-Saxons, controlling the region and its affairs. The Anglo-Saxons eventually defeated the last Viking king of York, Eric Bloodaxe, and Athelstan became the first king of the English, although the newly formed Kingdom of Denmark would conquer England and even found a short-lived Danish dynasty under Knut the Norseman had a dramatic impact on the Isles. So it's no wonder some words in the English language have Norse origin. After defeating formidable sea raiders from Ireland, the Western Isles, Scandinavia, and Anglo-Saxon forces from Mercia were fed up. Llewellyn subdued his rivals in southwest Wales. Llewellyn became the only Welsh king ever to rule over the entire territory of Wales. He was defeated by the English Earl Harold Godwinson and killed by his own men, leading to the Welsh kingdom splitting apart. Once more, at the death of Edward the Confessor, there was a succession dispute between 4 claimants. Harold Godwinson was elected as king and managed to defend England from an invasion by the Norwegian king Harald Hardrada. However, Howard had sent his army south to defend against Duke William of Normandy, who could cross the English Channel. According to tradition, at the Battle of Hastings, Harold was killed by an arrow to the eye, and the Norman invaders were victorious. The new King William defeated a number of rebellions, built a new design of castles called moats and bailies, and introduced a number of reforms like trial-like combat and the Domesday Book. The Norman dynasty invaded into South Wales and parts of Ireland, creating the Lordship of Ireland. At court, nobles spoke and conducted sessions in the Anglo-Norman language, which endured for centuries and left an incredible mark in development of modern English. After a brief civil war, Henry would marry Eleanor of Aquitaine, establishing the Angevin Empire, beginning a long rivalry. Against France, Richard the Lionheart defended much of this territory and also became a central Christian commander during the Third Crusade, achieving considerable victories against his Muslim counterpart. Saladin under King John, heavy taxes were imposed on his barons in order to pay for his expensive foreign wars. The barons rebelled and forced John to sign the Magna Carta, a charter that established the principle that everyone was subject to the law, even the king, guaranteeing the rights of individuals, the right to justice, and the right to a fair trial. Most of North Wales remained independently ruled by several Welsh princes until 1216, when Llewellyn the Great became the ruler of the Principality of Wales. This would be the case until it, but the first who conquered Wales in 1284, effectively becoming parts England at the death of King Alexander. The third Scotland was left with 14 rivals for succession, succession to prevent civil war. The Scottish magnates asked Edward I of England to elect a claimant. John Balliol was elected king, but was constantly undermined by Edward, who opposed Scottish independence. Edward decided to launch several campaigns to conquer Scotland and depose King John, for which he acquired the nickname Hammer of the Scots. Under a brave Scottish knight, William Wallace, the Scots mounted resistance against the English, defeating them at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. Edward marched north in person and defeated Wallace in battle, but Wallace managed to escape. He was later captured and executed, but his efforts allowed Robert the Bruce to rise up and defeat the English, securing Scottish independence. When the King of France died without an heir, Edward III was technically eligible to the crown through his mother. The French court denied his claim and instead installed Philip of Valois. Edward paid homage to Philip as he owned the lands of Gascony and was essentially a vassal to the King of France. Due to disagreements, Edward reasserted his claim to the throne and invaded France. Beginning the 100 Years' War, the English achieved notable victories, the Battle of Crécy Poitiers and Agincourt, thanks to the technical superiority of the longbow, but was unable to conquer the French. With the appearance of Joan of Arc, who lifted the French spirit and turned the tide of the war. Upon the death of Edward III, an entire generation was skipped in the line of succession, which prompted bitter rivalry between several claimants. Most notably were the houses of York and Lancaster. Tensions were high until a bloody age of warfare erupted between these two factions in the Wars of the Roses. It's so in-depth and complicated, this period would likely become a video of its own. The wars ended with the arrival of the Tudor dynasty, Henry VIII wanting a divorce split with the Church, creating his own Church of England. This ultimately led to a series of religious differences between future English monarchs and between his 6 wives and naval adventures. Henry gave Wales representation in Parliament and created the Kingdom of Ireland, but realistically, he only controlled an area known as the Pale. In addition, Henry's paranoia and suspicion amounted to tens of thousands of executions, including his friends and wives. During the 16th century, the largest and most powerful empire was Spain under King Philip I. England under Elizabeth I were helping Dutch rebels project Spanish rule, and many English privateers were also intercepting Spanish silver on its journey back from the New World. This angered the Spanish king, and the final straw came when Elizabeth had Mary, Queen of Scots, executed because she did not want Scotland falling under Catholicism. The Spanish Armada, consisting of 130 ships, was deployed to invade England. At the Battle of Gravelines, an English victory forced the Spanish fleet to sail around the British Isles before storms in the north of Scotland destroyed the remaining ships. In Battalion, the English, led by Sir Francis Drake, amassed their own armada to invade Spain, but this too became a failed endeavor. Born in this period, William Shakespeare became a renowned poet, playwright, and actor who contributed significantly to English literature. When Queen Elizabeth of England died without an heir, her closest male relative was James VI of Scotland. James was elected as King of England and Scotland in a personal union, although the countries remained separate political entities. As the first monarch to rule the entire island of Great Britain, several assassination attempts were made by Catholic conspirators. One such assassination attempt was the Gunpowder Plot by Guy Fawkes, who tried to blow up parliaments after a failed colony known as Roanoke, England, established a successful colony known as Jamestown, which would eventually evolve into the 13 colonies. At first, expeditions to the New World were mainly driven by religious motives, which were predominantly to convert the natives to their faith, but colonies became more profitable. British Empire officially ended with Hong Kong, Britain's last colony, being handed over to China in 1997. The empire committed many atrocities on many different people, imposing their culture and civilization, while often wiping out native ones. On the other hand, this brought about globalization and the uniting of the modern world, and without such innovations and industrialization, the world might have been a very different place. The United Kingdom suffered a small economic recession in 2008, but has since recovered. It is a multicultural society, with each region retaining a presence of its history and culture. If you ever visit, look out for the Welsh cake, the haggis, the whiskey, the Chelsea bun, the parmo, the Cumberland sausage, the Yorkshire pudding, or the Cornish pasty. The UK remains a member of NATO, United Nations, and the World Trade Organization, and uses the pound currency. In 2016, a referendum resulted in 51.9% of voters in favor to leave the European Union. All of the countries within the United Kingdom became divided on the matter, leading to the many questions of its future unity. Thank you for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, support us on Patreon. Have a good one.